As you know, crossovers and light trucks are hotter than ever. They account for 60% of sales. And I think the car companies like Ford are taking advantage of that. This is the 2016 Ford Explorer Platinum all-wheel drive with a 3.5 liter EcoBoost. What I typically like to do is drive the car for a day or so before I look at the sticker price. And this car has given me the biggest sticker shock of any car I've driven in the last 12 months. $54,700 for a Ford Explorer. Are you kidding me? So what you have here is the top of the line Platinum with all-wheel drive, as mentioned, and it's got the 365 horsepower, 3.5 liter twin turbo EcoBoost engine, a fine engine. Ford claims a combined 18 miles to the gallon. We've been averaging, in pretty normal driving, about 14 miles to the gallon. Quite a discrepancy, and for a lot of people in this segment, fuel economy does matter. We'll get to that later. That's not a top 3, but it's certainly probably a top 5 for people. I just don't know how this vehicle crept up to a $55,000 MSRP. And when you add tax to that, you're coming up near $60,000 for a non-luxury car. If this was a Lincoln and Lincoln was a relevant luxury brand, I could see Ford getting that. Anyway, all that aside, I don't even like this car. It's very bulky. I'm tall enough, so it's really not an issue, but for shorter drivers, it would be a huge problem. You have a very bulky hood, a bulky dash, and you have a C-pillar that creates a tremendous blind spot for most drivers. You also have a pretty large A-pillar. There's just a lot going on with this car. I understand it's the Platinum Edition, and Ford wants to cater to the King Ranch kind of buyer. They made the King Ranch as a super pickup truck. Well, they're doing the same now with these vehicles, and I just don't get it, because if you are stupid enough to spend $55,000 for this car, then you must have money to burn. When Honda came out with the current generation Pilot and priced it at $46,000 for their Elite model, I thought that was really pushing it. $55,000 to me is nothing short of absurd, and I think is an insult to buyers. Aside from that, the seating is pretty comfortable. You have the cactus chairs in the second row. You do have the nifty little tailgate where you just wave your leg. It's okay. I actually like Hyundai's system better, where you just have the key in your pocket, and as long as you're close enough to it, it opens up. The infotainment system, it's sync. What can I tell you? Never been a fan. And now that I've seen Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, this is antiquated. $55,000 for a family crossover that doesn't even have Apple CarPlay makes zero sense. You don't even have head-up display. A lot of things that you would expect in a $55,000 car just don't exist in this Explorer. Now, it does have plenty of power. It's got paddle shifters. It's got some nice steering controls. It's a nice vehicle. But if you would ask me, hey Ron, after driving this car for a week, what would you think the MSRP is? I would have put it at around $46,000, not $55,000. Now, even though it accelerates nicely, it's pretty sloppy. I gotta tell you, we did have a chance to drive this in January during a snowstorm in Michigan, and it did fine. But here on dry roads, we have some uneven surfaces. I mean, the car is very bouncy, and I'm just not a fan. Aside from that, the controls are fine. They've been improved. The sound system's a Sony sound system. Aside from that, the center stack is okay. I've seen better. I've seen worse. At least you have a nice big traditional dial, as opposed to some of these new cars that just have buttons for the volume. You have a decent size 8-inch screen, certainly on par with with a vehicle of this stature. But overall, just nothing really impressive here. A lot of old technology in this car. They did do a mid-cycle refresh. The car looks a lot better, has more of a Range Rover look to it. Unfortunately, a Range Rover price as well. I mean, God, if you don't need that third row, maybe look at the new Jaguar F-Pace. That starts at $42,000. $55,000 will get you a really nice F-Pace. No third row, but it's a Jaguar. It's a luxury car. The bottom line for me on the Explorer is that it's a non-luxury car priced like a luxury car, because, quite frankly, their luxury division, Lincoln, is in the shitter, and I don't see them getting out of that anytime soon. Lincoln is just not a relevant brand, not a top 10 luxury brand by any means. Nothing wrong with Lincolns. They just don't spew luxury. Let's get back to the Explorer. Nice job on the engine, nice execution overall. Find yourself a nice middle of the road one and stick to about 42 as your top price. This particular car is not worth over 46,000. I think 42, you should be able to negotiate a decent deal. The problem is right now that dealers aren't negotiating on these as much because the time that they're staying on the lot is not very long, and they know it. You can get a good deal on a Focus or a Taurus or a Fusion, but you're not going to get a good deal on one of their crossovers. And again, it's all about supply and demand. We put a fair amount of miles on here, almost 300, and we're not done with it yet. Again, comfortable seating, the controls, ergonomics are accessible, and yeah, the steering is okay. This just feels like a very heavy vehicle. I can't imagine it with the smaller four-cylinder EcoBoost engine, but people do buy it, and if you don't need to accelerate fast, it's probably adequate. Competitors in this segment include the Pilot from Honda, Toyota Highlander, the Nissan Pathfinder, Hyundai Santa Fe, Kia Sorento. You also have the Chevy Traverse, GMC Acadia, that line. The Acadia just got completely redesigned, new platform. You also have the Durango from Dodge. So a lot of options to choose from. This would not be in the top 3 of my list just because of how they're pricing it. And Ford is notorious for pricing their vehicles too high, and then when you look at the transaction price, it's typically much lower. I don't know why they do that, but that's kind of the game they play. That's it. That's the bottom line. Thanks for watching. I'm Ron Doron. We'll see you next time on The Driver's Seat.